Do farm organizations and commodity groups actually help farmers? I'm sitting at a table with three of my farming friends. We're going to ask that very question in this episode of The Granary. You ready for a conversation with some real farmers about real issues? The best part? You're invited. So pour yourself a drink, grab a snack, most importantly, pull up a chair. Welcome to The Granary. Hey guys. All right, so I asked the question. Gavin Spoor is joining us. He's a friend of XtremeAg. He's a Missouri farmer, a young man, 27 years old. Started as not a generational farm, and we're pretty excited about having him here. He's going to be doing some cool stuff with Kelly this year. And we got my man Temple Rhodes from Maryland. We got Kelly Garrett from Iowa. I asked a question. As soon as I asked a question, you gave a little bit of a look. You gave a reaction, because the one thing that our listener needs to understand, my guys do not know what we're going to cover until we open this show. That way we get the spontaneous, authentic, real reaction.
Sometimes it's terrible. I mean, it like paints you in a corner.
Not just sometimes, most of the time.
Like literally every time.
But you don't have any problem taking a stand, Kelly, and none of our guys do. That's why everybody tunes into XtremeAg. Do farm groups help farmers? Do commodity groups help farmers? And I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. There's like 37 organizations that are funded with checkoff dollars, which means your money pays for them. I think that some of them, many of them, have become little miniature bureaucracies. In some cases, not even miniature bureaucracies. They take money. They're supposed to represent farmers. Do they help you?
You want a black and white answer, yes or no?
Yes.
Overall, I would say yes. However, there's a lot of pork that could be trimmed off.
All right. You're a young man. I'm going to let you think on that. You've been around this game a little bit longer. Do farm groups, do commodity groups? I'm talking everything from Farm Bureau to National Farmers Union to National Corn Growers Association to the Watermelon Growers Association. Do they help farmers?
Sure, because, I mean, you have to have somebody out there that's lobbying for our rights. I mean, where do you think all that money comes from? You know, I mean, that money has to come from somewhere. And all of those things, they matter. So it doesn't matter if it's somebody that's paying, you know what I mean, that's lobbying for us, or somebody that's just educating the general public. Because to be honest with you, before social media, you know what I mean? Like Gavin's an influencer, and you know what I mean? And we're supposedly influencers or whatever. I hate that word. But before that, who else did you have out there educating the farmer? Because years ago, me and Kelly, we're not going out and doing things, educating the community and lobbying and doing, like, it has to come from somewhere.
I don't disagree. By the way, the word influencer, one of my buddies, when I got my Ag Influencer Award, he says they should have known you in college. I'd have called you an Ag under the influencer. And I was award worthy of it. Do farm groups help you?
I think so. Being young, I don't think I have as much of an opinion as these guys that have been around for a while.
They had opinions that were pretty unjustified when they were 27. I mean, trust me, you can look at them. You can just tell that they had a lot of opinions back then.
I think overall they do. I know if all the money that those groups got, if they just gave it to me in a pile and said, go make an impact with it, I don't know that I could make as much of his impact as they do. You know, they've got the connections. They're working behind the scenes on all this stuff you never really see to help what we're doing, which allows us to farm. I like farming. I don't want to go try to find.
That's a good way of looking at it. Okay. You pay a lot. Every bushel you sell, there's like a, I don't know, penny rake, 2 penny rake that goes to the Corn Growers Association.
Right.
Or American Soybean Association. Beef has a pretty significant checkoff program. It's like $1 per head or something per hundredweight. It's a pretty big pile of money. So if you had that money that Gavin just spoke of in your pocket that you pay through all of the rake, could you do a better job than all those organizations do?
No, I could not. Part of the problem is, as a farmer, or we're looking at our operation, the wheels don't have to turn very slow. You can make a decision and you can pivot on a dime. When you're in an organization like that, like I was on the school board, we're setting policy and things like that. There's a slow change, and unfortunately it's slow. And that's what happens in a lot, especially a national organization. That's a big organization, you know, lobbying to different countries and things like that. And when it comes all the way down to the farm gate, do we see a huge change all the time, or like we'd like to? No, we don't. But I sure don't think I can make a bigger impact. It's a huge job.
Some of them I think we should probably be technically, because some of these commodity groups are going to get after me and say, Temple has said the word lobby and Kelly said the word lobby. Technically, by the rule of the law that set up the Checkoff programs, they are to be education and outreach and promotion, not lobbying. Then there's the other ones that you can fund without the Checkoff that do the lobbying. So
that's fine. No, that's fine. That's fine too. Give me the difference. Define the difference between lobby and promotion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they're synonymous.
To the legal aspect, there is.
To the legal aspect.
And we're not in any way, we don't want those organizations to come after us and say, hey,
no, that's not what I mean.
There is a difference on which ones are funded. But the point is,
be realistic. How much money are they really taking out of your check? Like, we're talking about pennies compared to the big picture. Like, it's not like we're like, holy moly, they took 15%, pennies, or whatever.
Pennies, but you put pennies over a million bushels, it's not insignificant.
Well, I understand that, but what are you going to do to promote?
Yeah.
Pennies do add up, but if it takes 1 or 2 pennies and they can get us back 3 or 4, you're doubling your investment if you want to look at it that way.
What do you think they do this? What do you think, from your perspective, what are these groups doing best and what are they doing worst?
The one that I thought was the best of all time, didn't the Cattlemen's Association put on the beef? It's what's for dinner. I think that's one of the best promotions I've ever seen. Got Milk.
Yeah.
Those are great promotions.
Got Milk was fantastic. They stuck with it a little long. It got long in the tooth. They stuck with it for 24 years. You could argue, like a rock, the Chevy commercials that ran for 7 years, all marketing organizations said some of the best marketing it's ever done. Bob Seger's singing and truck comes over the mound on a pasture and it made you want to go and buy a Chevy. Well, probably not you, but anyway, it was, Got Milk was one of the very successful ones. And actually it was an ad agency in California that came up with that. What have they done bad? What do they think that they miss? I think the easy one is they become bureaucracies that have there's a lot of bacon to be chewed out there.
Yes, that would be my answer. Operations grow and they get larger. You get middle management. Seems like there's a lot of waste. It can happen in every business.
But how are they going to trim any fat?
I don't know.
Mean, you think about the take back when we were Gavin's age, when a lot of these checkoffs came along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when the checkoffs and things first came along, we were like, oh, why? But then you think about how they've grown and how many people it takes to build that infrastructure and to finalize it. That takes a lot of money. So, I mean, I don't foresee anything that they've done as bad. They're helping promote what we do and the crops that we raise. The soy checkoff dollars might go back to, helping with the soy industry producing plastic. Like for years on John Deere combines, they had a sticker there that was like, it made with soy or whatever. Yeah. Like a lot of those things go back to those checkoff dollars.
Research and some of that.
Yeah.
Out there. What about another one that's not checkoff dollars, but it's the biggest in the country? Presidential candidates go and speak at their convention. I'm talking about the Farm Bureau. I've spoken at a number of Farm Bureau statewide organizations and even at the national. They particularly love to work with what does every state have? The Missouri Young Farmer and Ranchers. I was a speaker at their conference several years ago. You may have been there. Does the Farm Bureau help you?
Again, I don't know that I can have much of an opinion.
By the way, you're at the wrong table if you don't bring opinions, all right, Gavin?
I'm still in the absorbing information.
Well, I got that, but you know what? This is a pretty opinionated group right here.
True, that is true.
Particularly that one.
That's not true. I'm not opinionated.
I think overall they do. I think a lot of the work that these men and women do is behind the scenes that we don't notice. So then it's easy to cast stones at them whenever a lot of the stuff they don't, there's not a Farm Bureau Association member or worker, but they are working they're not trying to waste our money just to waste it. They're trying to do positive things with it.
You could argue that they've got a lot of staff.
You can argue that they have a lot of staff. Like, let's talk about an organization like Farm Bureau. Can I say one big thing that they've accomplished? I cannot. But what if they weren't there promoting us? Yeah. How much further backwards would we be? Mm-hmm. That's something else that they could defend themselves, and I would defend that as well.
What do you think? Maryland Farm Bureau has never been a client of mine, unfortunately. Iowa and Missouri have been, so you're the odd man
They're
out.
Tiny.
Well, yeah.
They're tiny, that's why.
There's only 14 farmers in all of Maryland.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you get back. Like, I mean, years ago, they used to have like what they called Farm Bureau tires, like there was promotions that Farm Bureau would help you, replace tractor tires, and they'd be a lot more cost effective. Like there's a lot of things that go in there that you take for granted that they've helped with, and I think that that's a lot of it. Like just like Gavin said, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and you don't know until you educate yourself.
Farm Bureau in Indiana, I'm a member. I give them $37 a year because I think it's important to keep them active and viable, and I get their newsletters. They do a lot of stuff on drainage. Although when I had a little scrape with the neighbors, you weren't in on that. I asked them to represent me, and they didn't, so I had to just take matters.
I wouldn't represent you either. I've seen the arguments that you've had with your neighbors. I would definitely be like, no.
What about any other organizations that are out here? We talk about the commodity groups. We talk about the farm bureaus. There are others. Anybody that you say has particularly helped me as a young guy coming into this industry, or gal?
As far as organizations, I was in FFA. FFA did a lot for me in high school that I learned about, and they continue to help after we're out of high school. Just a week ago, I went back and talked to our FFA chapter. That right there, they do a lot. Yeah. Now, I wouldn't go to lump them in the same as all these other groups we're talking about, but they are an organization that is helping young farmers.
I don't know if you ever heard, I was in the FFA soil hygiene. I was ninth in the nation.
I really had to bring up.
I was ninth in the nation in soil land pasture analysis in 1987. I mean, I got a medal.
When I was at college, there was a guy who wore a jacket that said FFA Forestry State Team. And like his junior year of college, he was still wearing that. And thinking back, it reminds me a lot of you.
I still actually have the jacket. Thank you, Gavin. But you didn't have a lot of opinions, you little shit. All right. So what I got going now is, are there organizations, regional ones, like where they're taking care of a lot of, environmental stuff, obviously in Maryland?
Well, what about, is there any, and I'm going to pass this off to Gavin, but is there any grants out there that has helped you be a young farmer to try to, to try to do better for yourself?
I haven't really gotten grants per se. I mean, scholarship funds that help pay for some college. Those were.
Well, that brings up the USDA then. They have a program that is really good for ag. Young farmer. If I said I'm a young guy that wants to open a dry cleaners, I can't go and get a 2% loan from the government. If I'm a young farmer, I can.
With my two sons on the farm, we look for every opportunity with USDA. They each own a parcel of land with the young farmers. Cheese, that's very involved in the cattle, wanted to do rotational grazing. And so we took a pasture and we put it to rotational grazing, and it's in their name. And it paid better. Yeah. The rotational grazing, the grant money paid better because they're beginning farmers.
That was a great program. It's a so-called organization that has helped out young farmers. And I mean, Gavin, you should probably look into some of those things. Yeah. There's a ton of opportunity out there for young farmers that Kelly and I never had.
I haven't bought a farm through the Young Farmer Loan Program, but I've got some friends that I went to college with that have, and that's made a huge difference. I mean, now they've got a pile of equity because the land's just appreciated so much, and they've still got that low interest loan locked in, and it's really helped them feel a little bit more safe on the farm and in their position.
Side note, that land can go down in value and you still own the same amount. You still owe, your loan remains the same. Your loan remains the same whether the property goes up in value or down.
They made a good investment.
Yes, they made a very good investment.
What about he's talking about the educational stuff. I think there's a lot of stuff out here that some of it, it's almost overwhelming. We've only got 1.9 million farms in the United States, and there's a lot of groups that are ag. Like I said, from the watermelons to the corn to the soybeans, the wheat. I mean, I've spoken to so many of these groups. There's a lot of groups. Are we going to have less by the time he's your age? Are you going to have less of these? Do some of them go away?
I don't know. I think
it's a consolidating farmer make it that way.
I think that there's going to be more and more opportunities that arise with other organizations kind of quote unquote buying into the agriculture community, not buying into ag, but buying into the community through programs, through carbon programs, or whatever it may be, because there's so much interest environmentally to do the right thing, and they're trying to have clean air, clean water, clean everything, and we're making steps towards that. I think you're going to see more and more organizations pop up over the next few years, in our future, especially in his future, that are going to really become like this is going to be a real income for the next generation?
You?
I think that there will continue to be organizations. There could be
Will the Watermelon Association still be around?
Yeah, because I think there'll still be watermelon farmers, until you get down to there's just a handful. But as long as there's farmers involved in watermelons, I think there'll be an organization.
Gavin, from your perspective, like I said, I keep saying that only because you've got more youth than the three of us sitting here. Is there stuff where they're missing the boat that some of these farm organizations, whether it's Farm Bureau or the Checkoff programs or anything, is there somewhere that you're like, you want to grab them and shake them and say, hey, listen, man, I'm a young guy here in agriculture. Here's how you can help me.
Yeah, I think long term there's going to be almost a split because the commodities, not everyone has 10 chickens and 20 cows and 500 acres of corn. I think you're going to see a split where you've got your corn and your soybean farmers, and they get bigger and bigger just because you have to have a scale. And then you see organizations pop up that represent more of that small local farm, the guy that's got 10 head of freezer beef or something. I don't see that all stays combined.
By the way, those are the ones that don't have the representation. If you read, I try to read a lot and keep up with it. The person that's farming 20,000 acres in central Illinois probably doesn't have a big complaint against the corn growers and the soybean association. Although they'd say, well, we pay a lot into it. The person that's farming 200 acres and is doing stuff more niche, they're going to say, I got no representation. They're going to say, I'm trying to sell freezer beef and I'm doing a direct to consumer and farm to table and all that. I ain't getting any representation. That's where I think they feel slighted.
I think you'll see some of the organizations, this is just me guessing, spitballing, pivot to more represent that smaller farmer, or some new organization is going to pop up to represent them.
The Farm to Table Association, right. The National Trace and Accountability could be that. Our members are, doing the whole accountability and traceability of the food and all that.
There really should be two different organizations when you think about how different a large grain farm can be and the small direct-to-consumer farm could be. Yeah, certainly, regardless of what they're.
I got a friend that's in Roanoke, Indiana. He farms about 1,400 acres, but it's all organic, and I can't be big, so I've got to get more of a premium. Yeah. He says, the Corn Growers Association and the soybean, and it even does some wheat or whatever. He says, they don't represent me. He says, I'm in such a niche over here. He's like, I need somebody that's out here advocating on why organic grain then goes to the organic dairies or whatever and tries to help me continue to position this as a value add.
But if you're in a niche, what organization is going to be there for you because you're so few? That organization is for the masses. I think if you feel slighted because you're in a niche market, you made the choice to be in a niche market, and I don't know what you expect a national organization to do.
He's kind of a hard ass, isn't he? I mean, he's just basically saying, you know what, screw you.
Well, I think there'll be more micro farms, and there's going to be fewer large commodity farms just because of scale.
Consolidation, right?
Yeah.
Consolidation.
So eventually the organizations might be representing
16 farmers. Yeah, the thing is, then do they need them? Then it's going to say, hey, you know what? We farm 60,000 acres in between Kansas and Nebraska. We don't really need you. Could be that.
It could get to that.
I think the most valuable thing is more on the political front versus the marketing front. Now, some of the promotions that they do, I got a friend with the National Association of Wheat Growers who used to go to Asia, and he was all about ambassadorship. Go to Asia and keep that market happy that they're buying wheat from the Pacific Northwest. And so that, I think, is more valuable than going to the Farm Progress Show and saying, hey, we're here to represent corn farmers and tell you how awesome corn is. Well, everybody in Decatur, Illinois, that's at the Farm Progress Show is pretty well vested in corn already. I don't need to go and market to them.
I think that they could I think some of them could do a lot better job of marketing or promoting than what they are doing now. Like if they tagged up with Gavin Spoor, let's just say, and helped them promote Farm Bureau or whatever, even at a local or national level, I think that they could do a lot better job because, you take Farm Bureau and the Checkoff dollars, how much have they really changed over the last 20, 25 years? I'm not saying that they're not out there, not changing, but how much change have you really seen?
Are they actually meeting the consumer where the consumer is one of their other things.
Exactly.
They do a lot of preaching back to the choir, and that's because their members demand it. And that's the tough part.
Right.
You go to the Farm Progress Show, and then the commodity group is there telling you how awesome you are that grows the commodity, instead of going to his neighbors in suburban Maryland and saying, this is why soy is great, because it makes fibers that go in your yoga pants or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, because nobody knows that. I mean, we don't.
I'm not even sure that's true, by the way. I just kind of made that up.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's any soy fibers in yoga pants.
I mean, like you take, for instance, you don't, a lot of things that you don't know. I mean, when we went to Kelly's, was that 2 years ago, Kelly, when we were talking to that group, and those people had no idea, what regenerative agriculture was. They didn't have any idea how to grow corn. He didn't have any idea how Kelly farmed and took the crop off and put cattle on it, and there was a transfer of carbon. He didn't know any of that stuff. And then some of the things that we didn't know, we didn't realize that some stuff out of corn that they were extracting out of corn that was putting fiber in yoga pants and in tennis shoes, and they were replacing some of the petroleum. Like, those are all the things that, like, we didn't know.
Yeah, but does it bother you slightly that 3 men in their 50s are sitting around talking about yoga pants? I mean, I got almost a little uncomfortable there, didn't it?
I seen your girlfriend wearing before. I know it's on your mind too.
What I need to know, though, on the organizations that are doing this stuff, how can they get better?
Something I worry about is maybe infighting in between the different commodity groups, because I'll say, for instance, in Missouri, high oleic soybeans, high oil content, and using that in foods. But then the beef industry is going crazy with the tallow, and then people are worried about seed oils. Like, a lot of my neighbors raise cows and I raise soybeans. Neither one of them's bad. How do we stop the possibility of infighting?
It didn't take you long in this industry. You started farming when you were in college. So you've been at this for 7 years, roughly. Didn't take you long to pick up on that. That is, by the way, as old as American agriculture. The cattle people fought with the sheep people when we settled the West. I mean, this has been going on for a while. The grain people have fought with the livestock people. This is age old. They do fight a lot with each other.
Gotcha.
I think he's right. Talking about the fighting there, and I think what we could do better is education. As the world continues to evolve, used to be we never talked about seed oils, if they were good or bad. And we need education on that, and it needs to be honest, transparent education.
I get worried when commodity people start talking about educating, because, the consumer, if you go and tell the consumer that it's my, suburban Phoenix house wife and husband, hey, you just need to be educated. Well, what, you say I'm stupid? So I think
saying that you need to become more educated on a topic doesn't mean that you're stupid. It means that you don't know. You haven't learned it yet.
Well, we tell people that they need educated. It doesn't come across.
Yes. Well, I don't mean it to come across.
Promotion is really what you're talking about.
You hear a lot of things in social media. You hear a lot of things in the news, and they allude to what is true and what isn't true. I think that these groups should help try to educate the consumer on what is true about the crop that their organization represents. I
asked the question, do these organizations help farmers? And that's obviously we got into this point. I'll do one thing now. I want to hear you guys. I'll tell you what thing they get wrong. It doesn't matter whether I'm talking about Farm Bureau to any commodity group in the United States. Reactive versus proactive. It's always reactive versus proactive. All of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. Seed oils. Activists like RFK Jr. create this boogeyman known as seed oil. Nobody even used the term seed oils until 3 months ago when he got on the scene. And now it's reactive. Like, we better start telling everybody why seed oils. We always have to react, which is tough because you don't know where the harpoon's coming from, but we're always reacting to the dagger, the dart versus. Would you say that's inaccurate?
Yeah, I think so. The trouble is, whenever you start going to try to educate, if that's the word you want to use, it doesn't sound like education. It sounds like propaganda. Like, hey, we're the soybean farmer. We've got a lot of money behind us. We're growing the soybeans. Yeah. Here's why you should be using them.
Yes, he's right. And like you talked about reactive versus proactive, that's what I mean. The wheels turn too slow. It's too bad that they can't be more proactive or at least react faster.
Well, anything can change. I mean, think about how we've changed over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, the way that we farm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I've said it for years, reactive loses money, proactive makes money. It's the same scenario. It just takes a long time to adopt. And how do you bring it to the table?
I think one of the most amazing things about how great our country is the fact that we have to be reactive about seed oils. Like, we could have a country where we're so worried about where the next meal is coming from.
Yeah, right.
We'd eat a bowl full of soybean oil.
Right.
Like, we've done such a good job of producing everything and making sure everybody's safe. We can worry about the little things.
It doesn't look like the three of us have missed many meals.
No.
we
We haven't gone hungry too much.
No, which is an amazing thing. I mean, that's a testament to everybody who's worked hard before.
That's fantastic. He's right. And I made that point when the whole gluten thing was so overblown 10 years ago. And I pointed out, hey, you know what? We're pretty fortunate in a country where people can decide that they've just had a little too much gluten. It's a pretty good situation. I asked the question, do organizations like commodity groups and farm organizations help actual farmers? That's what we talked about in this episode. Gavin Spoor brought us a good little dose from Mexico, Missouri. That's a real place, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And we're not in any kind of a trade war with them?
Not right now. Anything can change.
Got it. And Gavin Spoor is joining us as a special guest here at the Granary. He's joined by Temple Rhodes and Kelly Garrett, two of XtremeAg's finest. I'm Damian Mason. You know what? We do this very often. We want you to join us here as often as you possibly can. It's real farmers talking about real stuff, enjoying ourselves, and we want you to pull up a chair at this very table right here. Till next time, cheers from the Granary. I think the joke about me being like the guy that was